What's up, YouTube? My name is Tyler Adolfo. I am 26 years old, and I have a diagnosis of bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I got diagnosed with this disorder. More specifically, I'm going to tell you about whether or not the diagnosis helped. I'm going to tell you about what ultimately helped me, and I'm going to tell you how I knew with time that the diagnosis was correct. So, the important thing to know about me is that I went clinically insane for 6 months. From fall of 2021, my junior year of college, to about late March, early April of 2022, I was in a state of severe mania with psychosis. And mania is an episode of bipolar where the person suffering experiences high levels of energy, a reduced need for sleep, and they can begin to experience a loss of touch with reality, which is exactly what happened with me. I had a psychotic break. I experienced psychosis, which is a psychotic break with reality. I was suffering from a myriad of powerful delusions, which greatly interfered with my daily life and disrupted my daily routines for the worse. In the aftermath of my mania, there were many consequences. I got expelled by my university. I got expelled by my college fraternity. I lost my full time job. I lost all my friends and connections. And I went from living on campus in a fraternity house to living back at home with my mom. Now, the average age of onset, the median age of onset, according to the National Institute of Mental Health for bipolar disorder, is 25 years old. My diagnosis the first time came in October of 2021, which is when I was 23 years old. So this is like right on par with what the data says. I got it a couple years earlier than the average person, but people get bipolar at all different ages. It can develop at all different ages. In my case, it manifested and I got diagnosed at age 23. I was hospitalized for 5 days in 2021. It was beginning in October, late October. And it's because I was experiencing suicidal ideation and a wide array of profoundly powerful delusions which concerned friends of mine. One concerned friend of mine contacted authorities, whom then met me at the campus pond and essentially detained me and had me brought to the hospital so that I could get medical attention. The hospital diagnosed me with bipolar and severe mania. It was very evident to people who know what mania is that I was in an episode of mania. I had been awake for days at a time. I was talking very speedily. I sounded like a delusional auctioneer. I would rant about 10 different topics in the span of 1 minute. And don't ask me to replicate that now because I still to this day don't know how I managed to do that. It's just the state that my brain was in. It's not something that I can just, bring through a conduit now and replicate. It's something that I was only able to do in that delusional state of mind. So when I got out of the hospital, my mania actually intensified and got much worse. Originally, I denied that I even had bipolar. That first time I got diagnosed, I denied that I had it. And my time in the hospital did not help. It only made my mania worse. They did not put me on any medications as I was leaving the hospital. They did not give me any follow-up plans for treatment or a list of any doctors to visit. You think they would enumerate some strategies for me to take advantage of to become better. But the problem is they released me when I was in a state of mind where I thought there was nothing wrong with me. I did not have the insight, I did not have the intellectual capacity to accept that there was something wrong with me. I ardently believed that me being hospitalized was a setup. It was a collaboration between the government, my fraternity, the university, to cover up what I was trying to expose, to cover up the fact that I was this arbiter of truth. And I had all these feelings of grandiosity, and yet they still released me from the hospital. And I can truly say, I can attest to this day, to this moment, that it ruined my life. It transformed my life for the worse. Had I been committed to the hospital longer, I would have gotten the treatment I needed. I would have eventually gotten some kind of medication to pull me out of the psychotic state that I was in, but that didn't happen. You know, part of me wants to say the past is the past on that particular note, but it's very hard to move on from that. It was a very traumatizing experience. When I left the hospital, I returned to my manic ways, but it was a much more intensified form of mania, and it ultimately culminated in me being arrested after getting into a fight. And I remember being very manic in prison too, and well, in jail. And it was a terrifying experience. I would not recommend jail for anybody by any means. Not a fun time, as you can imagine. When I got out of jail, I was, of course, still very manic. And what did I do? I went on social media and I started sporadically disseminating court documents, which my defense attorney had specifically told me not to do because I was in an irrational state. And I thought that an assassination attempt had been made on me because I thought I was related to the Kennedys. And, you know, I know hearing this, some of you are probably thinking, wow, this guy's truly nuts. And you wouldn't be wrong, I truly was. But I am in a position now where I can recognize that the delusions I cleaved to were delusions, that these were grounded in irrational thoughts. They were not based in logic of any sense of the word. I know that now, and the reason I know that now is because I'm on medications. Shortly after my arrest from getting into that fight, the university found out, and I got expelled by my university. I remember going to the appeal hearing, still in a manic state. So this was an extensively long episode. And up until the very end, I emphatically denied that I was bipolar. To most sets of eyes, it's abundantly obvious that, wow, this person clearly had something wrong with them. But when you are that person who has something wrong with them, it can be so hard to have the insight, to have the discernment, to know there's something wrong, to accept there's something wrong. Because that's what delusions is. They're strongly held beliefs in things that are not real, in things that do not concur with reality. That's what transpired with me. And at the end of my manic episode, when I finally did get treatment, I went to a partial hospitalization program. And the reason I went is because I was ordered by the court to go. It's not because I thought there was something wrong with me. It's because I was ordered by the court to go as a condition for my release. So I went to the hospital, and they also diagnosed me with bipolar type 1 with psychotic features and mania. And in the notes, my then psychiatrist, Cheryl, had delineated that it was very obvious that he was in a state of mania, very severe mania. And the mania was so severe that my criminal case actually ended up getting dismissed altogether with time due to the nature of how mentally ill that I was, and I was suffering from a mental health disability. So I was not criminally responsible in the eyes of the court, and the case got dismissed by the prosecutor. The charges were dismissed. Where I'm at today, I know that I have bipolar. I knew it from the time I started Abilify. A few weeks after starting Abilify is when I knew it. I started Abilify once I got entered into the partial hospitalization program. And it took a few weeks to alleviate my symptoms, but eventually Abilify pulled me out of the depths of mania. And as I was leaving the state of mania, I started to realize the things I was saying and doing these past 6 months were delusional, that they were not truly who Tyler Adolfo is. And I began to do research and came to the conclusion that my psychiatrist was right, the medical professionals were right, that I had bipolar all this time. What helped me is medications. If it wasn't for Abilify, I'm not sure I ever would have left that psychotic episode. Something terrible or tragic could have happened to me. And I know the diagnosis is right because the symptoms I experienced align with what the symptoms are of bipolar disorder mania and bipolar disorder depression. So it was a very cogent process of discovery once I regained control of my sanity. But that cogent process didn't begin until I regained control of my sanity, because there was nothing logical about it when I was still in a state of mania and in ardent denial of what happened. So that's how I came to find out that I had bipolar disorder, and I've been living my life with it since, and I'll be living the rest of my life with this disorder. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.